Hello and welcome to your Fix Your Low Back Starter Kit. I'm Leanne, Strength and Mobility Coach, and I'm going to take you through a sample Kinstretch class today so that you can feel what this work really does for your body. Kinstretch is a joint training system designed to give you more usable range of motion, not just flexibility, but actually build strength into your end ranges. Because of the system, that means we don't just walk away with reduced tightness, because we do, but we also end up feeling stronger and way more capable in all of our joints. This class is a starter kit, not because it's easy, but because it's an introduction to two of the most important pieces of the puzzle: hip mobility and strength, and segmentation of your spine. If your low back feels stiff, achy, or unpredictable, these two areas are almost always part of that story. A quick heads up before we start: if you do this class and think, oh, this is what my low back has been missing, the full Unlock Your Low Back mini course is linked below. This video gives you a taste, but the course shows you how to actually progress the work day by day and step by step. To get started, all you're going to need is a bench or a couch and some space on the floor. We're going to get started with your hips. Here's the important thing that you need to know about your hips. If your hips don't have good mobility and strength, the low back has to take over the load. Your low back and your hips have a really strong relationship. When the hips are underperforming, your low back has to take over. The load has to go somewhere, the force and strength has to go somewhere, and it ends up in the low back. So let's start with a little bit of a self-assessment and a warm-up, and you can determine for yourself where you're stronger and where you're weaker. To warm up our hips and also check what our range of motion looks like today, we're going to lie on our back on the floor and start by stacking our knee directly on top of our hip. This is going to be called a capsule car. That is going to warm up the deepest tissue inside your hip capsule. The first thing you're going to do is move your foot as far as you can inward, making sure that the knee stays stacked directly over the hip. And then you're going to move your foot as far as you can outward, making sure again the knee has stayed stacked directly above the hip. We're just going to go back and forth like this a few times, just checking out what is our range of motion today and building a little bit of strength and warming up that hip capsule, getting some blood flow deep into the hip capsule. Every single time you hit your end range here, pause for a second. See, can I go a little farther? That's what makes this really valuable, is every time you think you hit your end range, kind of challenge yourself. Think, can I get my foot even farther before we start turning and going the other direction? Intent really matters when we're working with mobility, making sure that we're going slow and controlled. We'll go one more each direction. This is external rotation as we're bringing the foot in. That's because the femur is going externally while the foot is coming in. I get asked that question a lot. And then internal rotation of the hip is when the foot goes out. Again, that's because your femur, this bone here, is rotating internally as the foot goes out. So it's internal rotation of the hip. It's a clarifying question that I get quite often. Very valuable to understand. Let's move on to our other side. Go ahead and stack your knee above your hip. So external rotation first, which is bringing the foot to the inside. And then internal rotation second, which is bringing the foot to the outside, just like this. Same thing every single time that you hit your end range, question it. Could I go just a little bit farther? Could I push that range a little bit more? And same thing, the other direction. As far as range of motion goes in this class, we're mainly going to be focusing on external rotation, this part of the movement right here. But internal rotation is equally as important. But like we said, this is your starter class. There's only so much we can cover in one class. So for this class, we're focusing on external rotation, this direction right here. However, if you're somebody that comes into internal rotation and you're like, ooh, I don't move very much this way, That is super valuable information for you to know. Just make a mental note of that and come back to it in another class. Now that we've got our hips a little bit warmed up and we know that we're focusing on external rotation of the hip, you're going to need your bench. Go ahead and grab a pillow or something soft for your knee. We're going to start with this elevated pigeon stretch, which looks just like this. Now, if you get into this stretch and you're like, okay, Leanne, I'm not getting into that stretch, no problem. I always have a solution for you. Go ahead and grab an extra pillow, an extra 6 pillows if you need it. Build yourself a little platform down here and then come back into your stretch. And that's going to be way more comfortable for you. So what you want to do is just work with the mobility that you have today and find a spot where you can be here. And although you feel a strong stretch right through here, you go, okay, I can breathe in it. At no point do you want to be holding your breath. At no point do you want to be feeling like you're just fighting through. I want you to be able to take really deep inhales, long exhales, and just feel into that stretch right there. We're going to do that a couple times here now, all together. Really deep inhale, and a really long exhale. Couple more. Deep inhale, long exhale. Using your breath to soothe your central nervous system is going to help us get even more out of this stretch. And then from here, we're going to do a little bit of activation. When we use this activation, we're bringing blood flow and nutrients deep into the tissue here. And that's a really big key for helping the hips open up and also building a lot of strength into the hip. Our central nervous system is more comfortable and lets us have more range when it knows that we can be strong in that range. So by applying a little bit of force, a little bit of effort during our stretch, we actually open up significantly faster and get stronger hips. 2 for 2. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Imagine there's a bug underneath your knee and you want to squish it. Go ahead and start pushing your knee down into the bench as if you are trying to squish a bug. Now, everything that was just being stretched feels like it's activating. We got activation happening here. And you can give this a really good push. These are big muscles. So go ahead and slowly build it up. Push a little bit harder again, and a little bit harder again, and relax. Big breath out. Now I want you to take a deep breath in, long exhale, and you might find that sensation changed a little bit after that contraction. I know mine did. Now I can get a little deeper into the stretch. So I'm actually going to bring my knee a little bit closer to being in the center of my chest. And that's going to make that stretch a little bit deeper. And we're going to go ahead and do that one more time. Start driving your knee down into the bench as if you're trying to squish a bug beneath your knee. You can push your shin down. You can push your ankle down. Everything that's on the bench, you can drive it downwards and slowly ramp up that contraction a little bit more and a little bit more. This is our final round on this side, and I want you to push a little bit harder than you did on the first round. For another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax your contraction. Take a breath in. Really long exhale. Beautiful. And go ahead and move yourself out of that stretch. Wiggle it around for a second. Just do a little shake. And then we're going to go ahead and move onto our other side. Coming into that same position, our elevated pigeon here. Now it's totally normal for one side to feel a little different than the other. There's no such thing as a completely symmetrical body. We strive for it the best that we can, but nobody is 100% symmetrical. So it's okay if you notice, oh, maybe I need an extra pillow on one side. Maybe I can go a little bit deeper on one side. It just tells you which side needs a little extra love and care. You can spend a little bit more time on one side versus the other if you need it. So the first thing we do here is just work on our breathing. We want to soothe our central nervous system. So we're going to take a deep breath in and a long exhale again. Breath in and an extra long exhale. Our parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest, digest, relaxation response, is activated on the exhale. So if you're able to make your exhale longer than your inhale, you're going to find that your mobility work actually moves along a little faster. Your results are going to come a little bit quicker because your body feels more relaxed while doing the work. And with mobility work, that is quite important. So from here, we're going to start those contractions. So you're going to think bug underneath your knee, go ahead and start driving your knee down into the bench, activating all of the tissue that is being stretched. You can start by pushing at say like 50 or 60% of how hard you think you can push, and then keep ramping that up. Another 5%, another 5%, another 5%, and keep going, and relax your contraction. Big breath in, extra long exhale. And if you found that after that contraction, the stretch has lessened, it has decreased, that's a good sign. You can come a little bit deeper into your stretch. So we can move the knee a little bit closer to being towards the center of the chest, if that feels good to you. If it still feels quite tight, stay where you are. That's also okay. We just need to put in a little bit extra work. So let's do that one more time. Go ahead and start driving your knee, your shin, your ankle, everything down into the bench. Activating all that tissue that was just being stretched and ramping it up. On this second round, we're trying to push harder than we did on the first round. You're seeing, can you ramp that up a little bit more? Can you push even harder? We want this to feel like a strength exercise for the hip, and relax. Deep breath in, extra long exhale. Beautiful. And we can slowly come out of that, give it a little shake, give her a little movement. See how you're feeling for a second there. So now we're going to strengthen our hips, because like we talked about, we want your hips to be able to carry load and produce force. When your hips can produce force, the low back doesn't have to work as hard. So we're going to start in this 90-90 position. Our back leg knee is lined up with the center of the hip, just like this. You can see that position there, and we have 90 degrees in the front leg right here. So we have a couple levels here. The hardest level is having your hand really close to your body. That's pretty tough. If we have our hand farther out, it's way easier. Way out, much easier. And if we have the elbow on the ground, that is your easiest variation. So you can go ahead and choose what level feels right for you today. That's the only change you need to make in order to regress it. What we're going to do is seated hip cars, or controlled articular rotations. That means we are going to use this back leg here. We're going to lift it off the ground, and then you're going to go ahead and start twisting the hip, bringing the knee towards your shoulder. Pause there for a second, before we come back into our starting position, lining that knee up with the hip again, and then setting it back down, nice and gentle. All right, that's one rep. Let's go ahead and do the same thing again. If you find that your elbow bends when you lift, try to keep it straight. And if you can't, just move a little farther out. That's going to help keep the strength purely into the hip so that we don't start compensating and using other joints. So you can go ahead and lift, bring your knee towards your shoulder, bring that knee back in line with the hip again, set it back down. Rep 3, lift, bring your knee towards your shoulder, bring it back in line with the hip again, and set it back down. 3 more reps here. Double check that that elbow is staying locked out the whole time. I promise you, you get way more value if we keep the body really tall and the elbow locked out. It is way better to be out here with a straight elbow than to be closer, but finding that you're having to bend the elbow like this to get the hip off the ground or to get the foot off the ground. All right, we're on our last rep here and set down. We should have felt lots of strength building in those hips there. So let's go ahead and switch to the other side. Same thing, line that knee up with the center of your hip. Choose your spot, whether it's here, 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 does not matter. Wherever you're at today, it's only information about how strong you are currently, and you get to build on that over time and just get stronger and stronger. So let's go ahead, 6 reps again. Lift that knee, bring it up towards your shoulder. Make sure that knee ends up in line with the hip again and set it back down. I'm going to tell you a really common error that people make as they're setting it back down. So we lift, perfect, right? Knees in line with the hip. We bring that knee towards your shoulder, and then often as we're bringing it back, instead of having that knee in line with the hip again, people will set that knee down farther forward. So instead of lining it up here, they'll bring it back down by doing this. And then you can see my knee's now quite a bit farther forward, and you're just not going to get that same strengthening. So what you want to do is every time you lift, we feel the hip, we get that beautiful rotation that strengthens that deep inner hip. And as we're bringing it back in line, we just want to do that double check and be like, did my knee end up in line with my hip again? If so, beautiful. That is exactly what we want, because it's just going to make you that much stronger, that much more controlled through your hip joint. And I'm sure you can picture the more control you have in your hip joint, the easier every single lower body movement is. Whether you're squatting, whether you're walking, whether you're chasing your kids or hiking up a mountain, the more strength you have in your hips, the easier every lower body movement is. So now that we've built both range and strength into our hips, we're going to move into the low back itself and work on some spine segmentation in a couple different ways here. Why is this so important? Each vertebrae in your spine is its own joint, but we often forget to think about it that way. We'll be like, this is my spine. It moves all together, but we forget that the low back needs to be able to move separate from the upper back. That is how we ensure that the low back really knows how to do its job, and a low back that knows how to do its job and isn't relying on what's below it and what's above it is a low back that feels really, really good. So that's what we're going to work on today. We're going to begin that with some pelvic tilts. So what you're going to do is have your legs outstretched on the floor just like this. Then you're going to go ahead and put your elbows on the floor down here. If you want to have a pillow underneath your elbows, please do. Now from here, we're going to work on pelvic tilts. So what that means is tuck your tailbone under as if you're trying to round your low back. and squeeze your belly button towards your spine as you do that. From there, you're going to arch your low back just like this. And now we're going to get a little bit of a contraction into the low back right here. Now we're going to do this for a few reps here, really, really slow. And all the movement is we're trying to make that come from our low back. Every time we round through the low back, pull your belly button towards your spine to help activate your core. And then every time that we arch the low back, you're going to keep your abdomen a little bit more relaxed and just try to find your end range here. So you're getting a little bit of strength and control into that low back. It should feel like a contraction. Here we go again. Find that rounding by tucking your tailbone. Think tuck, tailbone, underneath, little squeeze through the abdomen, and then arch, low back, send belly button to sky. We're going to do this 3 more times. Tuck, tailbone, pull, belly button to spine, arch, low back, so that belly button goes towards the ceiling. 2 more reps, nice and slow and controlled. You're really going to notice that with low back work, slow and controlled makes your progress happen faster. Little arch here. Now 1 more time, coming into our tailbone tuck. Pull that belly button towards your spine. And then little arch. Find that contraction. Okay. From there, we're going to move into some rounding of the low back. So what you're going to do is come onto your hands and knees here in a quadruped position. This is an excellent exercise for strengthening your core in a way that protects your low back, as well as getting a really nice stretch to loosen this area. The first thing that you're going to do is round as much as you can from this position. How much rounding can you get? Do a double check that your wrists are stacked underneath your shoulders and that your knees are stacked underneath your hips. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit of core strengthening here. That's probably going to feel a little bit new. This is going to strengthen your deepest inner core, which is the part of your core that actually protects your low back and keeps your low back feeling really, really good. Okay, so tuck your tailbone, round as much as you can. As you're rounding as much as you can, I want you to think about pulling your belly button towards your spine. And you should already feel like you're getting a little bit of core engagement here by pulling your belly button towards your spine. It should feel like a strength exercise. Now, we're going to take it up a notch. You're going to imagine that you can pull your hands towards your knees and that you can pull your knees towards your hands. Now, you're not going to be able to because the floor is going to prevent you from doing that. But what is going to happen is you're going to feel a really deep contraction in your abdomen if we're doing all these steps well. Feel it for yourself, okay? Come with me on this journey. So, we're as round as we can possibly get. We're pulling our belly button towards our spine so we feel a contraction in the core because we're pulling that belly button in. And now you're going to think about dragging your hands towards your knees and your knees towards your hands. And immediately, you can hear it in my voice, you should feel a deep contraction into your abdomen. Keep holding here by pulling belly button towards spine more. Pull your hands towards your knees and your knees towards your hands more for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. That's really hard work, but truly one of the best core exercises that you can do specifically for your low back. Take a breath. We are going to do it just one more time. Something that I find works really well to get the most out of this is making sure that you just go back and forth between the cues. Be like, can I pull my belly button towards my spine more? And then can I close the gap more between my hands and knees? And you're not actually going to be moving your hands and knees, but you're going to find that as soon as you do this, you're pulling, right? You are going to feel a really, really strong contraction. So let's go ahead and do that same thing again, step by step. So you're just going to go ahead and round as much as you can. Find your max rounded position. Pull your belly button towards your spine, already getting a little bit of a contraction in the core. Now here's where the real work starts. Pull your hands towards your knees and your knees towards your hands. Immediately you're going to feel that contraction. You can hear it in my voice. I've got a little bit of a shake. Those are all really good signs. And then go through your checklist. See if you can round your spine more. Could you pull your belly button towards your spine more? Could you pull your hands towards your knees more? As you go through those cues, it should start to feel harder, higher effort, and like you're gaining more strength. And relax. That's hard work. You did awesome by just being here and practicing that. It is such a good one to keep that low back feeling really good. So we've only got one more drill left today since we've done so much valuable work. The last thing that we're going to do is work on a little bit of lumbar spine segmentation in a way that the upper back can't get involved. So like we talked about, the low back is so vastly affected by what's below it and what's above it. So this is a great drill if your upper back is doing a lot of the work for your low back. And we want the low back to be able to know how to do its job on its own. We can block the upper back from doing the work by using a bench, a chair, a couch, whatever you got around. What you're going to do is find your lowest ribs, right? That lowest part of your rib cage. And you're going to put that lowest part of your rib cage on your bench and you're going to fold over it just like this. I don't want to be up here. I want to fold over. I'm going to be on my toes like this. My knees can be on the ground. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a little low back cat-cow from this position. That's going to look like this. I'm going to tuck my tailbone under and round as much as I can. I get a really nice stretch through the low back here. And then I'm going to go ahead and send my tailbone to the sky and get a nice little contraction in my low back into this extension. Now you're going to notice as I'm going through this, it's impossible for my upper back to be helping here. This is how we can teach the low back and the upper back to separate from each other. They each have individual jobs to do, and that's really important. If we want our low back to be feeling amazing, if we want that tightness to be reduced, if we want the low back to feel strong, to feel capable, like it can do heavy deadlifts, like it can walk up hills, anything that you want it to be able to do, this is really important to be able to do. So keep yourself rounded over your bench or whatever object you're doing. Have your chest relaxed into it. And then just go through these little cat-cows, as much movement as you can by only using the low back. And just like we did at the start with our hip warm-up, every single time you hit end ranges, you're thinking, is this really my end range? Or could I go just a little bit farther? Is this really as round as I could get? Or could I try to round a little bit more? Maybe get a little core contraction here. Same thing as I send my tailbone to the sky, getting a little contraction into my low back. And let's do one more rep. Could I round even more? Could I try to get even more rounding in that low back to get even more value out of this exercise and help my progress move along a little bit faster? Last time into extension. Okay, and go ahead and relax out of that. Here's what you need to know for your next steps. If this class felt different than what you're used to, if your low back feels lighter or that you're more connected to it, that's not by accident. That's because we didn't just stretch your tight low back. We gave your body information about how we want your joints to behave within your system. And that's exactly why my Unlock Your Low Back mini course uses this exact approach as a repeatable system that you can use anytime your low back feels a little bit off, or as preventative so it just never gets there. It's only $49 Canadian for lifetime access so that you can help build a lower back that feels strong, capable, and trustworthy again. If this sample class helped you, the course is going to take you even further. It's linked below. Thank you for training with me today.